Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be reading 3 scary stories from r/nosleep on Reddit. So let's get to it. If you like this kind of content, feel free to like and subscribe, and let's get to it. I thought I was schizophrenic until I realized I wasn't. The wallpaper in my apartment was a sickly shade of yellow, peeling away in long, dry strips like dead skin. I had been sitting in the same armchair for 6 hours, staring at the corner of the ceiling. Dr. Aris had called it sensory gating deficit. He said my brain was a broken radio, picking up static and interpreting it as voices. He gave me clozapine, heavy, chalky pills that made my tongue feel like a piece of lead. "They aren't there, Elias," he would say in that soft, patronizing voice. The tall man with the needle fingers. The way the walls pulse like a throat. "It's just your dopamine receptors misfiring." I wanted to believe him. God, I tried. At 11:42 p.m., the scratching started. Began inside the radiator. A rhythmic, metallic scraping that lasted for 20 minutes. In the past, I would have closed my eyes and counted backwards from 100. It's just the pipes expanding, I told myself. Thermal expansion. But then, the sound migrated. It crawled out of the radiator and moved across the floorboards. I watched the wood. I watched it with an intensity that made my vision blur. Slowly, agonizingly, the floorboards began to bow upward, as if something incredibly heavy was stepping on them from underneath the solid oak. "It's not real," I whispered. My voice was a dry croak. Then the first hallucination appeared. It emerged from the shadow of my coat rack. It was nearly 7 feet tall, its limbs as thin as willow branches, draped in a translucent, oily membrane. It didn't have a face, just a cluster of wet, blinking eyes arranged in a vertical line down its torso. I watched it for an hour. It didn't move fast. It moved with the agonizing slowness of a clock hand. It reached out a limb, the joints clicking like a bag of marbles, and it touched the edge of my coffee table. In the past, my hand would have passed right through it. Hallucinations don't have mass. But the table creaked. The wood splintered under the creature's touch. A glass of water tipped over, the liquid spilling across the floor, soaking into the carpet. "No," I gasped, the leaden weight of my medication making my heart thrum. "You're a projection. My brain is misfiring." The creature leaned in. I could smell it now. It didn't smell like a hospital or a pharmacy. It smelled like the deep, pressurized salt of the ocean floor and ozone. It opened a slit near its collarbone, and a sound came out, not a voice, but a frequency that made my teeth ache. "We are tired of being invisible." It vibrated. I grabbed my bottle of pills and threw it at the thing. The plastic bottle didn't fly through the air and hit the wall. It hit the creature's chest with a dull thud and fell to the floor. The creature picked up a single pill with 2 needle-like fingers. It crushed the medicine into a fine, white powder. "If I'm crazy," I screamed, "why can I feel the wind when you move?" I stood up, my legs shaking, and ran to the bathroom. I locked the door and stared into the mirror. This was my ritual. Dr. Aris said mirrors were grounding. But as I watched, my reflection didn't mimic me. My reflection stayed still, staring back with an expression of absolute soul-shattering pity. Behind my reflection in the mirror world of my bathroom, dozens of the eye-covered creatures were huddled together, their limbs intertwined like a nest of snakes. I realized then, the coldness that turned my blood to slush, that the medication wasn't meant to stop the hallucinations. It was meant to dim my vision. The world I thought was real, the world of parks and jobs and doctors, was the hallucination. The static, I wasn't picking up wasn't a broken radio. I was the only radio in the world that was tuned to the right station. I heard a knock on the bathroom door. "Elias? It's Dr. Eris. I let myself in with the emergency key. You missed our check-in." "Doctor!" I yelled, pressing my back against the door. "They're here! They're solid! They broke the table!" "Elias, open the door. You're having a breakdown. I have the order for the inpatient ward right here." I unlocked the door, desperate for a human face. Dr. Eris stood there, his clipboard in hand. He looked normal. He looked safe. But then I looked at his shadow. His shadow didn't look like a man in a suit. His shadow was a sprawling, multi-limbed mass that covered the entire hallway. And as Dr. Eris reached out to touch my arm, I saw his human hand flicker. For a split second, it wasn't skin. It was the same oily membrane I had seen on the creature. "You're one of them," I whispered. Dr. Eris stopped smiling. His eyes didn't move, but the skin on his forehead split open, revealing a row of wet, blinking eyes that matched the thing in my living room. "We've tried to keep you sedated, Elias," he said, his voice now vibrating with that same horrible frequency. "It's so much more painful for the cattle when they can see the butcher." He stepped toward me, and the walls of my apartment finally gave up the illusion. The yellow wallpaper dissolved, revealing that I wasn't in an apartment at all. I was in a cage made of bone, suspended in a vast, dark cathedral of flesh. Thousands of people were in similar cages, all of them staring blankly into space, their mouths moving as they talked to doctors and families that weren't there. I wasn't a schizophrenic man in a messy apartment. I was a conscious mind in a harvest field, and medicine had finally worn off. I worked at a gas station where no one loses the lottery. I used to work nights at the 24-hour Shell on the edge of Elmwood. Flickering sodium lights, the diesel stench that never quite left your clothes. The clock above the register stuck 3 minutes behind, like even time was too tired to move. A typical shift was nothing. Count the same pack of Marlboros for the third time at 4 a.m. Listen to the coffee machine gurgle like it was dying. Watch moths spiral into the bug zapper outside until the pop, pop, pop sound, like a distant gunfire. Sometimes a regular drunk, old Ray, would stumble in, buy a tall boy, and a single scratch-off he never won. He'd scratch it with his thumbnail, mutter, "Next time," and shuffle back into the dark. Routine. Safe. Boring enough to make you forget how empty the streets sounded at 3 a.m. The scratch-off machine sat in the corner like it had always been there. Bulky, beige, older than me. Customers started calling it lucky after the first few big hits. Mr. Harlan came in every Tuesday like clockwork. Always the same, Marlboros, 1 ticket, scratched slow and deliberate with the nickel he kept in his pocket, purposefully stored. He'd hum tunelessly while he worked the foil, like he was coaxing the wind out. One night he hit $50, tipped me a 10 and said, "See? Patience pays." Next week, $100. He started scratching slower each time, eyes fixed, like he was afraid to miss a silver flake. Harlan stopped coming by after he won a few more times. Odd for a routine-driven guy like him. Sheriff Rowland stopped by now and then, always for a blue raspberry slushy misshift. "This stuff never gets old," he said with the blue smile. I asked him about Mr. Harlan, given that this was the second Tuesday he didn't show. "Mind if I ask you something, Sheriff?" He set the slushie on the counter, adjusted his glasses. "Long as it's not about parking tickets." Harlan used to come in every Tuesday, always the same time. I haven't seen him since he won a bunch of scratch-off tickets. This is the 3rd week in a row. Roland watched the machine while I talked, didn't look at me once. "Trailer was empty when his employer reported him missing," he said finally. "The lights in the house were all burning, and the fridge door open." "That's weird. Anything out of the ordinary?" I asked. His jaw tightened, just a little. "Winning tickets on the dining room table," he said. like somebody left in a hurry. I pointed toward the corner where the machine rested. It came from that machine. He took a long pull from the straw, eyes still on the screen with his spectacles reflecting the light it emitted. "People who catch a break don't always leave a forwarding address," he said. "Some folks take the chance to disappear." He picked up the slushie and headed for the door. You worry too much," he added. "This town does that to people." I watched him go, but the problem was Mr. Harlan wasn't the only one who'd caught a break, and he wasn't the only one who'd stopped coming back. Tammy from the diner across the street used to come in after her graveyard shift, still in her uniform, smelling of grease and cheap cigarettes. She'd buy a ticket, scratch it fast like it owed her money, laugh when she lost. After her $200 win, she started showing up later and later, alone, eyes glassy. This machine knows me," she told me once, voice low. Quit her job the next day. No one saw her after that. Another case was Jake, the mechanic. Loud enough that you always heard him before you saw him. A loud guy. Always mentioned about how he just needed one more win to finally fix the shop for good. One night he hit $500, the biggest payout I ever saw from that machine. A week later, Jake was dead. His truck went straight off the ravine on Dude Pass. The news spread through town like the flu. People whispered about it. No skid marks, no swerve, just tire tracks, arrows straight, disappearing over the edge. Most folks settled on the obvious explanation that he was drunk, blacked out, another senseless accident. But anyone who knew Jake knew better. He loved two things more than anything else: his truck and his work. Mr. Jones loved it. Sales tripled. He hung a little handwritten sign above the machine, "Our Lucky Scratchers," with the winking emoji sticker. When I mentioned how many winners had vanished, he smiled that small, polite smile and said, "People win. They move on. Life changes. You should play too. Night boy. Maybe your luck is waiting." He said it in the way someone offers you a mint after they've already slipped something in your drink. I thought about it longer than I should have, tried to line things up, still came up with loose ends. 3 people. 3 people, same routine, same machine. All of it breaking the same way after they won. I told myself there were explanations. People change. People make bad decisions when money shows up. That's what everyone says. But Jake loved that truck. Loved it enough that he wouldn't even drink if he planned on driving it home. He lived 2 blocks from his shop, close enough to walk. So why did he drive up the mountain? I knew that there was only one way to find out what the hell was going on. I started testing tickets on slow shifts. First time I hesitated, stood there staring at the dispenser like it might bite. Just one, I told myself, see if it's really lucky. Used the same quarter every time, same spot at the counter, same slow scratch. The wind felt like a tiny electric kiss, sharp, a rush followed immediately by cold nausea crawling up my throat. It was the same feeling you get when you deliberately do something you're not supposed to. After the rush, it felt like the foil was scraping something inside my skull. My hand started shaking the way Tammy's hand shook. Convinced myself it was the energy drink. One slow night, I tried to warn the guy, middle-aged, quiet, buying a stack for his wife's birthday. "Hey man," I said, keeping my voice casual. "Maybe skip these tonight. Weird shit's been happening with winners." He laughed. "You trying to scare off business?" Mr. Jones appeared from the back, calm as ever. "He's joking. Play if you want. Luck's luck." The guy bought them anyway. Never saw him or his family again. The machine started acting in a way that it wanted to be observed. Screen lagging on animations, like it was thinking. Dispenser clicking when no one was near it, soft, expectant. Every time when I turned my back to stock shelves, my skin prickled like someone was staring, as if a shadow was lurking behind me. I felt presence from a specific direction. My spatial awareness sharpened to a painful clarity. The bug zapper outside fell into sync with my breathing. Pop on the inhale, pop on the exhale. Each crack of electricity landed somewhere deep in my chest. Every sound and smell arriving, amplified, distorted, wrong. I could feel each electrical pulse firing through my synapses, as if my nerves were no longer my own, but part of the current itself. One night, the power dipped. Everything died except the machine. Its screen stayed bright, cycling slower. I leaned close. For half a second, the text changed. I win. Then, back to normal. I would never forget the time a kid, maybe 19, came in around 3 a.m. He bought 10 tickets with crumpled 20s, scratched them one after another at the counter. The sound was intimate, slow, scrape, scrape, scrape of a coin on foil, each layer peeling back with a faint metallic sigh. The smell of fresh scratch-off film filled the air, powdery, chemical, distinctive. He won every single one, laughed so hard he started coughing, bought more tickets, then continued scratching like he couldn't stop. His fingers sped up, then slowed again, careful, deliberate. I knew something was wrong before his eyes went empty. He was smiling. He never stopped smiling. By the time I followed him outside, he was sitting in a Civic with the engine running, just staring down at the tickets spread across his lap. The smile was still there, pulled wider than it should have been, like his face had forgotten how to relax, or how to look normal. I watched the clock over the register roll forward and back again. He didn't move for almost an hour. I tapped the window. Nothing. His mouth moved, stretching soundlessly, working at words that never came, mucus pouring out of his mouth, dilated pupils which can only be associated with the effect of some kind of extreme drug. I called for an ambulance. They didn't arrive for 3 hours. By then, his hands were locked around the tickets, fingers curled tight like claws. The paramedics had to peel them loose, one by one. After the incident, I couldn't sleep without dreaming of his face. Not screaming, not in pain, just that euphoric, vacant expression. I kept thinking about it afterwards. He was fine before he bought the tickets. I broke in on my night off. I still had the spare key from closing. The store was pitch black, except for the machine's haze. Its glow pulsed softly, slow and inconsistent, like it was breathing. I stood there longer than I meant to, weighing consequences I already knew I would ignore. I was drawn to it, to the light, to the smell of freshly printed hard paper, to the shimmer of silver foil and the dry whisper it made when peeled back. My mouth watered. The hair along my arms and neck stood on end. Tears pooled in my eye sockets as the urge to scratch and win swelled until it filled every inch of me. I acknowledged it, communicated with it, without words. I wanted to obey it. Then a moment slipped past, what felt like a trance, a walking daydream, where my body simply took over. My arms reached out on its own, fingers closing in on the print button. I tore myself away and yanked the plug from the wall, heart hammering. The cord came free cleanly. The screen stayed lit. "The fuck?" I whispered. I grabbed the broom from the storeroom and struck the screen. It answered with a dull, hollow thump. Something sounded back. A voice. Very close, very patient. What came out of the machine could only be described as a distorted grunt. It spoke my name, first, middle, last, slowly, like it was reading from an old report card. Then it said my mother's name, the way she used to when I was little and in trouble. Soft, disappointed. The air thickened with the smell of it, powdery, metallic scratch-off foil, undercut by something wetter, like coins left too long in a corpse's pocket. I froze. I clamped my hands over my ears. desperate to shut out the lie. It didn't sound like her, but I recognized it. Her. It. The noise swelled away, forcing its way through the gaps between my fingers. I squeezed my eyes shut, bracing for something terrible. Light burned through my eyelids, searing white. I gave in to the weight of my body and folded forward, burying my head between my knees. This was it. Then it stopped. The light, the sound. I opened my eyes slowly. The store was full of cops. Mr. Jones told the cops I'd had an episode. He showed them the footage, me standing alone in the dark, perfectly still, eyes fixed on something that wasn't there, whispering for 20 minutes straight. I didn't remember any of it. Not the words, not the time missing, nothing. The cops gave me a warning and left it at that. No charges, no paperwork, just looks. Mr. Jones stood beside them the whole time, calm, smiling softly. When they turned to go, he gave me a little wink, like we shared something. I told myself I was grateful. Word spread fast. It always does in towns like this. Nightboy lost it. People started asking me if I was okay, the way you ask someone with a rash if it's contagious. Mr. Jones stayed too calm. Customers complained about the missing machine. He told them it was under repair. It never came back. A few days later, I drove past the shell at 2 a.m. again, lights off except the corner window. A faint glow leaked out, the kind that doesn't come from fluorescent tubes. The silhouette inside was wrong. Too still. Too patient. A new machine maybe? Or the same one, just rolled to the next stop on the line. Someone stood at the counter, scratching, slow, methodical. The coin moved in tiny, deliberate circles like they had all the time in the world. Behind them, the shadow was taller now, not moving, just taller. I was drawn by it. I accelerated, didn't look back. But every gas station I pass, my fingers twitch for foil. Every time I blink, I see hands, dozens, hundreds, peeling silver in perfect unison. Faces stretched wide, grinning the way winners grin when the numbers finally line up. Mouths open too far, eyes too bright. They're still winning, still scratching, still whispering the names back to each other player like a prayer they can't stop saying. The glow moves. It follows me. Late at night, I catch myself murmuring their names, not mine, theirs. Curious of what I escaped and why they failed. If you drive past one of those machines someday, you'll feel the pull. Just one ticket, just to see, and when your fingers close around the foil, when the first silver flakes curl away, you'll hear it. Your name. You won't win it. It will win you. My best friend got cheap cosmetic surgery. About a week ago, my best friend called me about getting cosmetic surgery to hide some scarring on her face. I was happy for her, going past her pain rather than letting it consume her. I was ready to support her all the way, until she said the price. $50. $50 for cosmetic surgery. Surely it had to be a scam, right? Or some quack in the back alley? But no matter what I said, I simply couldn't convince her to go somewhere else. Her mind was made up. When I tried, she snapped at me. "You're trying to sabotage me, aren't you? Trying to send me to some expensive quack who'll mess it up." I eventually managed to calm her down. I was just worried about her. I didn't try to convince her anymore. I wish I did. The day after the surgery, she came over to my apartment. She looked great. Her skin was softer, her scars weren't even visible. She was absolutely glowing. We talked for a while, and I noticed something. A strange sound coming from beneath her skin, like rushing water, but thicker. It got louder whenever she opened her mouth to speak. I tried to write it off as paranoia. I was just worried about that surgeon she had gone to, but she looked great. Surely I had no reason to worry, right? We said our goodbyes with smiles as she went home that evening. Evening? I hadn't noticed it at the time, but yes, she'd been there all day. And neither of us had eaten. My stomach panged, but I watched as she left. She didn't even seem bothered by the hunger. That night, she posted a picture of herself on Instagram. I opened it. Used to it at this point, she loved posting pictures of her makeup or just herself when she was having a good day. I nearly screamed when I saw the photo and actually dropped my phone. There was something black leaking out of her eyes, her ears, even seeping between her perfectly white teeth. I turned off my phone. I didn't touch it again for the rest of the night. I made myself dinner and went back to bed, hoping that sleep could ease my nerves, or that I would wake up and it was just a bad dream. The next day, I got a call from an unknown number. I didn't answer it the first time. It called 3 more times. I answered and nearly swallowed my tongue. The words came as no more than a whisper, and that only made my heart race faster. "I've already fixed your friend. You're next." I hung up and immediately called my friend. She didn't answer. I called again and again. Nothing. I texted. Nothing. But she posted another picture. Her eyes were solid black now, and the same substance was running out of her nose. It felt like I couldn't breathe. I closed and opened the app, hoping the image would fix itself. It didn't. I didn't look at my phone for days after that, too scared of what I might see. It wasn't until yesterday that I finally bit the bullet and went to her house. I had a spare key and let myself in. The house was too quiet. I walked up the stairs to her bedroom with my heart pounding in my ears and dread filling every inch of my bones. I found her on the bed. The skin of her face was bubbling like Harry Potter polyjuice potion bubbling. When she spoke, her voice was hoarse, like there was something in her throat, stopping her from making sound. "I don't feel so good." There was this awful stretching sound coming from her face, not her mouth, her face, her skin. I could only stare with horror. Her eyes were black, her hands were stained with what looked like ink. And then it happened. Her entire face popped. I couldn't even see blood. It was all black, thick like tar. It spattered all over the room. I heard a scream. It took me only seconds to realize that I had made the sound myself, because she had stood up, skin hanging off of her skull in sheets, and spoke. Her voice wasn't hers. "Join us. Let him fix you." I raced home, trying to wash off the black substance that was staining my skin. It wouldn't come off. My fingertips are still black. I got an ad on my phone today for cheap cosmetic surgery. I think I'm the next target.